Looked at it, we think there's maybe 350 to 400, 450 property owners still in all of Ridglea Hills that may not have signed leases yet. I'm unclear what's going to happen to those leases. I'm supposed to meet within the next week or two with one of the Chesapeake leasing people in the Fort Worth office to talk about that, to see if there may be an opportunity to make a group deal. But you know, maybe there will be. But if it is, it's not going to be at $25,000 per acre. It's going to be well less than that because the market is no longer at $25,000 per acre. The sale price of gas is no longer as high as it was in 2008. Those are economic realities. I wish I could go to the bank and get a CD at 5% interest rate now, like I did in 2008. I can't do that anymore. If you know of a bank that'll do that, that's insured, by the way, let me know. I'd like to talk to them. But the economy has changed. The economics of leases has changed. And we're going to do the best we can to try to negotiate a good deal and make it available to those that wish to sign. If you do not wish to sign, you're not required to sign. But we will see what we can do and notify people, and hopefully we can come up with a proposal that many of you will be willing to sign if you're inclined to do so. Otherwise, we may have to wait several years for the price of natural gas to go back up. And some of Chesapeake's projections still about what's going to be produced from the Western drill site, I saw were still being estimated at $5 an MCF. Right now, the sale price of gas is under $4 per MCF. So, you know, the economy is not cooperating. We need some cold weather. We need for somebody to start using more natural gas, so the price will go up a little bit more. That's kind of an overview of where we are. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have and see where we go from there. And I'll be around after the meeting if you wish to come up and I'll talk to you privately after the meeting. Have a question here?
Recently in the newspaper, Chesapeake announced that they were going to be charging $1 per 1,000 MCF transportation costs.
Yes.
Did the lease that you all proposed several years ago cover that or protect you from that?
The lease that was negotiated in 2008 and was signed starting at the end of August, early September 2008, and then the signings continued until the crash hit the middle of October 2008. That lease did have language in it that said that we would not be charged for any transportation, compression, production expenses, and the letter that Chesapeake sent out, and I saw a letter that went to a number of neighborhood groups that have started to receive royalties about how their royalty is going to be recalculated because they have not calculated it correctly. I've not heard that anybody in this room, for example, may have gotten a letter like that because we're not to the production stage yet, so they don't have to correct anything. They'll just apply it the way they think it needs to be applied when that time comes.
Have you looked at the new lease form that's being signed now versus the one that you all signed?
The new lease form that's being offered to property owners, I think, is the standard Chesapeake lease form that would charge back some production and compression, those types of charges.
So for people who had not signed, is there a provision that they can add to that lease to cover?
That will be one of the things I sit down with the Chesapeake people and try to negotiate that in to make that available. But the land crews that are going around from Axia and from Purple Land Management do not have that any additions, any changes to the lease form. So I think when we talk about gas leases, just like we did in 2008, financial terms are important. How much you get paid an acre for your signing bonus is important. But the royalty is also important, and what kind of charges there are against that royalty are important. And there are also a number of other provisions in the lease, I'll call legal terms, that are important. The gas committee that I was working with, and I was a consultant to a gas committee that had John Tinsley and Jerry Thomas and Beverly and several others that were on it, did a very good job of negotiating it. They got information from other neighborhood groups, including a lot of provisions in it that were protective provisions, and those that signed the lease in 2008, the group lease from the end of August through the middle of October, have a lot of protective provisions in it. Those are not in the form that's being shown to people now to sign. That is the ones I have seen.
What about the new one, 3 years? Don't we all have a new one coming up to this?
Right. What I was asking him is there something that can be added to the lease as an addendum give you the.
Don't we have a new lease coming at us
No,
in September?
same lease, just an
Well,
extension.
let me talk about that
Just
for
an
a minute.
extension?
The lease that was signed in August, September, October 2008 was for a 3-year primary term,
That's two.
plus an option that Chesapeake could pay an additional amount, $20,000 per acre, to extend that lease for an additional 2 years. We're not quite to the point of seeing if Chesapeake is going to exercise any of those, but I don't personally anticipate that they're going to exercise very many of those. I'm not seeing that across town right now. I'm seeing them in some places walk away from leases where they've not been able to get their city permits or pipeline routes or other technical problems, engineering problems worked out. Even though they paid good money a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, sometimes they walk away from that and don't ever drill with it. So it never gets to the royalty production stage. Other times, I'm seeing that Chesapeake will take a position that, well, yes, this language is in there, but there's arguing room over what that means, and if we've not been able to get our permits from the city, or we've not been able to get the waivers from the property owners, or we've not been able to solve this problem or that problem that was beyond our control, then it does not expire at the end of 3 years. It has an additional period of time until we solve those problems. I wrote a letter a couple of months ago when that letter came out to Chesapeake saying I personally disagreed with some of the interpretation they make of that paragraph, particularly as it applies to the Ridglea Hills lease. Can't speak on a lot of other leases, but it looks like there's room to talk about that, and I don't know that I agree with their position. So far, I've not received a response from that, but I would anticipate that Chesapeake will say that the force majeure clause, the beyond their control clause, is going to apply, and therefore they don't need to pay the additional $20,000. But I don't want to presume to say what Chesapeake is going to say. I'm supposed to meet in the next couple of weeks, and I'll find that out firsthand and can report that on the website and your newsletter when it comes out.
We did get a letter with that force majeure on it, and
Yeah.
it suspended our lease. So until they get there, I mean, that means the provisions that we originally signed will be null and void.
Well, I think I know the letter you got. It was a position that Chesapeake took as to how they were interpreting that language.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily interpret that language the same way, but at this point, we have not resolved that issue. And I don't know how
Are
it's
you
going to.
working on resolving that, or how? do you get
Well, how that would be resolved ultimately, and right now I'm doing it really as a volunteer because I assisted your group 3 years ago to work on that. I keep up with it. I talked to Bob DeShine about that as to what's going on so that he can report information on the website. At some point, you know, if there's going to be some serious negotiations over a new lease for those that have not yet signed, or argument about the lease that was signed that may need to be interpreted, the group may need to think about whether it's appropriate to put a committee together again to look at it, or hire an attorney to give the correct advice on that. It could end up in a lawsuit at some point by one side or the other if there's still a disagreement over that. But until some wells get ready to be actually drilled, it's kind of a nice issue, but you know, it's not worth arguing about yet.
Would it be wise for the residents who have received the letter where the Chesapeake has said they're invoking the force majeure clause to write a response? We do not agree with that.
I know that some residents of Ridglea Hills have responded to that letter, because I've gotten copies of some of those letters. And the ones I've talked to have not received a response from Chesapeake in response to the objection letter, I'll call it. That's something you may wish to think about, but I view Chesapeake's letter as a unilateral statement that, you know, if they get in and drill it before the end of the deadline anyway, it's kind of a moot issue. And because of the progress they've made on the drill site, I really anticipated that some wells would be drilled before the end of August or September or October. But it looks like they're not out there yet, so I'm beginning to get a little bit more concerned about it.
I have a question that I'll get to eventually, but first, the T1 and 2 wells that you referred to, they have gotten an okay on those. They have a plat on them.
Yes.
And they run down toward Vickery, and they're like all the other wells under the golf course. They've got 500 and something feet of perforation, which